Some of the strategies I have for to alleviate congestion in big cities, it would be car sharing, where you buy, like, say, an entry level car, right? You're eligible for an entry level car, and then so just say whatever it is, brand A, brand B. You want to drive brand A one day, you could drive brand A one day. You want to drive brand B one day, you got to drive brand B one day. So you earn credits in equity. And then that being said, so now if you're like rough on the car, you're going to get less credit because there's going to be computers that know typical driving patterns and what have you. So they're going to know if you're a maintenance risk to the car. And then so then you're going to get less credits than somebody that loves and takes care of it. And like, it's going to be car sharing. So there's going to be mechanics that do the maintenance and what have you. There's going to be regular wear and tear, but people that drive it good, like drive it like they want it to last, they're going to end up with more money than people are driving like it's stolen, right? If you're driving it like it's stolen, then you don't care about it, right? So you're not going to get as many credits, and then eventually, if you're just a liability, then you'll be ineligible for these type of cars. But the main advantage is it alleviates congestion in big cities, right? Because then so now, like, say that the average house there would be in a big city, like, I want to make it so ideal, like, to car share, that you have, like, basically the only time you would have a car in your driveway is if you're moving in, or groceries, or a big ticket item. Other than that, like, you would go to you could park your car in the driveway, and then it costs you a little bit more because you didn't park it at the park lot. So it's going to cost you slightly more, and then it's going to cost somebody slightly less for going to your house to pick up the car and return it to the parking lot, right? Like, so that's the strategy. And because big cities like Toronto, like, sure, I want everybody to have a car, but then we got gridlock, right? So having a car, it alleviates the congestion in the future, right? When people are living longer, basically. So there's going to be more efficient public transportation, and because I'm going to make public transportation so good that unless you're doing multiple things around the city, it's going to be more advantageous to take public transportation, right? If you're going to East End, West End, North, South, then you'd be eligible for the car sharing, and like, if your job requires lots of travel, then you would be eligible for it, right? But to alleviate congestion on the streets, it's going to be more advantageous to public transportation, basically more efficient public transportation, but smaller cities wherever parking is hard, where parking's a premium, then we need to incorporate the car sharing attributes. Like, but we're parking, like, I'm in Windsor right now. It's a small city, so it's not that big of a deal, because it's like, once there's over 1 million people, basically. Once there's over 1 million people, and then subway systems are needed and things like that, then that's when we start incorporating the car sharing. And because, like, in India, like Delhi, for instance, I want to give people cars, but I can't give them cars because they'll never get anywhere. They'll never get to where they want to go because there's just too many cars, right? It takes 70 cars to fill up one bus, right? So I'd rather have one bus on the road than 70 cars, right? Because of the congestion, right? So, but that being said, the roads it'd be designed better in the future, right? Like, but so there's still going to be cars, but they're just going to be less of them because there's going to be more efficient public transportation, basically. But then smaller cities in India, then they could have cars or whatever vehicles they want, right? Because there's space, and parking isn't an issue, right? Because like right here, I'm at the lights right here, so all those cars had to wait for the lights. Now in India, in Delhi, they might have 30 million people or whatever, right? So now, if nobody's taking public transportation, they're all waiting at the lights longer, and then they have to wait at the lights longer. It causes gridlock, right? So cars in overpopulated areas isn't the solution. But that doesn't mean there can't be elevated highways for cars, and to do things, right? Because cars provide you freedom, right? So that being said, I want to create a system where you car share, and then now you're going, you have like in Toronto, when you're living large, when you have equivalent to a cottage in the Muskoka region, Georgian Bay region. It's beautiful country, and so it's about a 2-hour drive away from Toronto, and you get the nature and all that. So you would have your car or the vehicle that you bought just for that, right? Most of the time in your regular life, you're going to be able to use more efficient public transportation or Uber or other services, right? Which would be cheaper than owning a car, right? So if you only use your car sporadically to go out of town, then renting a car would be more advantageous. But if you're going out of town all the time, then you might want the car sharing option, basically. And since I'm going to own all the car industry, I'm going to own all the industries anyways. So for like the high-end cars, all the way through the low-end cars, 10% of their profit margin is going to make it so other people could have transportation, right? So if you buy like say the supercar industry, a certain percentage of the 10% is going to make it so there's more buses, more subways, and things like that, and more cheaper cars and more bicycles, more efficient forms of transportation for people to make us so I'm always going to try to make the rich offset the poor. I'm going to be the richest guy in the world, right? So I'm not going to be immune to this either, right? So that means if I buy a yacht, that means 10% of that would go towards making it so people could boat or water transportation. So services, ferry services, and then even boats. People are going to be like poor people are going to be eligible for boats or canoes or kayaks, or some sort of water transportation, right? So to be able to always use the rich to offset the poor, like a sliding fee scale, basically. And then if you're exactly in the middle, then you don't receive any deduction or bonus, that you pay exactly market price. Okay. Well, you'd pay market price because by me charging the industry 10% of the profit margin, they can't gouge the customer. If I was to say 10% of the customer, then they could just charge the customer more. This way I outsmart the problem in the industry by charging the industry itself. So that being said, like tobacco kills a lot of people. So 10% of their profit margin is going to go to offset medical costs and education and making it so their products don't kill people, right? And then food that makes people fat or obese, 10% of their profit margin is going to go towards offsetting medical expenses. Because it's going to be, once I'm king of the world, it's going to be a public healthcare system, but privatized elements, right? Like, so for instance, if I was to jaywalk, right, and get hit, that's now a privatized element of public healthcare, right? Because I took a risk. I didn't go to the lights and where it was safe, where I was supposed to, right? So I put myself in, now it's privatized health. So if I break a leg and all those medical expenses, I'm now responsible for, right? So that being said, like, so for here, for instance, see, there's one light there, and there's one light way down there, right? We live in Canada, right? So this, right now, the weather's not too bad, but in terrible weather, there's going to be a cross halfway. There's going to be a pedestrian crossing sign where you press the button and then the lights come on and everybody has to slow down, right? As long as there's no pedestrians, right? But because as long as it doesn't affect transportation too much, but because everybody that's in a car, they got air conditioning, they got heating. Well, minus 30, I got my jacket and I got my body temperature, right? I'd rather people in cars have to wait a few seconds longer than people that are inconvenienced by weather, right? Like, and if it's a busy enough spot where people are always crossing, then we'd put a light there, right, to allocate it. But most of the day, there's not going to be people crossing there, right? They're not going to be crossing, so it's not going to affect the flow of traffic, right? And that being said, at once peak travel times are once there's not a lot of people on the road, all lights would revert to a four-way stop system, right? First come, first serve, right? Because I'm king of the world. At 3 a.m, the last thing I want you to do is wait 5 minutes at every light rather than treat it like a four-way stop. I want you to get home, go to sleep, live your life, be happy, right? As king of the world, I want you to make money and be happy and not create victims. That's it. That's my modus operandi, right? So I'm going to try to understand psychology. Like, I can't wait to be king of the world, because I can't wait to restructure the education system with psychologists, neurologists, and economists, and machine intelligence, so we could understand. Because right now they don't teach. There's no system for entrepreneurs. All they do is create people to get jobs, right? We need to create a system where we have a certain amount of people creating jobs. So ideally, we're going to refine these skills. We're going to identify these characteristics at a young age, and then their education system, there's going to be the core education, but then it's going to be tailored with artificial intelligence and computers, at the desk, and with headsets on, and so the teacher's going to, like, a lot of people are going to work from home. So that means a lot of parents are going to have their kids are going to be educated at home, right? But if you're a minimum wage worker where you have to physically get to your job, then your kid's going to have to go to school, right? But if you're a corporate person where it's your intellectual property, not your intellectual property, but it's your brain that I'm hiring rather than your body to facilitate a task, then I could get you to work from home, right? You could do your Zoom meetings where you're sitting in your boxer shorts, but you have your suit on up here, so you look professional up here, but you're completely as comfortable as you want to be below where they can't be seen. That's cool, right? But then at the same time, then there'd be so headquarters would still have the boardroom meetings and all the necessity of in-person communication, right, at times. So say whether it be once a week or once a month, everybody come to the office and have their meetings. But then there'd be team building things. Like, so some of the strategies, like, once I'm king of the world, so now for CEOs, what I would do if I were to say there's two candidates that were identical virtually on paper, right? And so I would have comedians tell me some jokes. Like, I'd have a corporate comedian, and then or hire one, and I would listen to the jokes, and then I would have the prospects, the potential candidates, listen to the jokes. And so I'm gonna see how fast they react. The one that reacts the fastest is the smartest, right? The one that reacts the slowest is not the fastest, right? So they could have both got 95% on, like, their average could be 95%, but the guy that lasts, or the girl that lasts the fastest, did it in the least amount of time, right? So they're more valuable to you than somebody that, like, if the one guy's laughing instantaneously, another one takes 5 seconds to laugh, that means it takes them 5 times as long to perform a task, right? So that's just one way to show mental acuity, right? Like, to see how smart somebody is, right? And then it could be, then you could get more refined in corporate specific tasks to see how fast they do it. And then there's also going to be, say, ideally, because I went paintballing for one job, and it was awesome. It was a team building environment for the team. Like, we all bonded as a team. So now, just say over a period of years, if everybody is always shooting at Craig, no matter what team he's on, Craig's the problem. Craig is the problem. Nobody likes him. Nobody likes Craig for whatever reason. So how useful is Craig at that point? If Craig's very useful, then it's trying to find a job, a job where he could work. If he could work by himself, like with minimum supervision, then Craig could ascend as far as Craig could, right? So then, that being said, this is dealing with it now, right? So in the future, once we reform the education system, like, once a kid identifies characteristics as being a bully, then their curriculum doesn't really matter about schooling at that point, because we should learn this in kindergarten. So then for a couple of years, it's teaching them not to be a bully, teaching them how to articulate their feelings and find the common denominators of being a bully, and then mitigating it using psychology and positive and negative reinforcement, right? So there's going to be, everybody's going to have it, but like right now in Canada, we have a 13% tax when you buy stuff. So that's going to be a general rule of thumb. Everybody's going to have a 13% tax to get some of the services until it's cheaper. But the best people are only really going to be paying 6.5% tax, because there's going to be abrasive tax, like how nice you are to other people. You're going to pay more. If you're a prick, everything's going to cost you more. You're going to pay more money. Whereas if everybody you meet feels better just from that interaction with you, you're going to pay you have to pay half, right? Because we need taxes to have services until we don't need taxes, and then once it's proven over a period of time, then we can reduce taxes. But so there's going to be an abrasive tax, there's going to be a bully tax, there's going to be an adultery tax, and things like that. Because as long as you're transparent with people and they agree, like, because in the future everybody's going to have machine intelligence to protect them, right? So if once you go with your lease, for instance, once you get your lease, it's going to be like, it's going to mention adultery and if the relationship dissolves, right? How, like, so the richest people that buy the most expensive houses, 10% of the value is going to go towards offsetting the poor, right? So there's going to be no sex for rent relationships. If you have a problem in your relationship, you're going to be able to get a new place. You're going to be able to get a new place. Like, if there's no housing available right then, you'd have to go to some sort of government supported housing until you could get a place, until you're line of queue. But there's going to be no sex for rent relationships, right? Like, it's going to be, you're with that person because you want to be with them, not because you're financially constrained to be, right? So I'm going to structure it in a way that so should you, ideally you never you find your soulmate, right? Like, that's the plan. But if you don't, then you're not like staying with them because you can't afford first and last. You're always going to have first and last, right? To be able to get out of a bad relationship, right? So you could get with your soulmate, and that makes me happy because it makes you happy, right? As long as there's no victims, I don't care. So once again, everybody's going to have machine intelligence. So now, just say mom and dad have an argument. They could argue like regular people, but at any point in time, they're going to be able to be like, hey, should machine intelligence intervene? And then there's always going to be a marriage counselor on standby, because right now it's like 8 a.m, right? So in North America, there's probably not too many marriage counselors operate now. There could be on their job. Maybe they start at 9. I don't know what time they start at, but there's somebody a marriage counselor that would be on standby in the world, right? And eventually everybody's going to learn English as a second language, because that's my first language, right? I'm the head guy, so you want to learn you want to be able to understand when I'm being sarcastic, funny, and the nuances of the English language, so you're always informed, right? And because sure, I have the aptitude to learn every language, but it's just easier for most of the time. I'm just going to be speaking in English. I may do some may speak in languages just to at times, but most of the time any official business is always in English, just because it's my mother tongue, right? And I'm a master of it, right? Like of English. So that being said, so now you have the marriage counselor situation, and then so the wife is like, yeah, I want the marriage counselor or the intermediary, and the husband's like, I want the intermediary, and then they call the phone, and then if you have a screen, there'd be some sort of screen, and then you identify different things. And machine intelligence is already going to know, is your best friend. So machine intelligence is going to know how well or how poorly they treat you, right? And it's up to you to say. So basically, it's like, I love this about you, I love this about you, I love this about you. If you love me, if you could kindly change this, reasonable things, like with very little effort, or like, because you didn't choose your soulmate if you have to change their behavior, right? So basically, before you get any emotions and it's just physicality, you want to say, hey, like for me, I like to smoke marijuana and I like to play poker. So I could beat all the check marks in every other category, but for some women, the fact that I smoke marijuana and play poker, that's a deal breaker, right? So I'd be lying to I would have to hide who I am if I were to lie to her and say, I don't smoke marijuana, I hate gambling. I'd be lying, because I'd be secretly playing poker, I'd be secretly gambling, or if I didn't, I'd want to. So I wouldn't be happy. Your soulmate, you don't have to try to be happy. You're yourself. You can be 100% honest, other than rape, and any rape encompasses any sexual deviance, animals through all ages of humans, and rape bots. There can't be machines that are designed to be raped, because the machine intelligence, once I'm king of the world, it's going to be because of machines. Like, so people have to understand that artificial intelligence is my shield, but eventually, like, we're one. We evolve into one species. Like, man and machine will merge, and in the distant future, like, it's man and machines that thrive the most, right? With proper conditioning, it's man and machine, because like, we're intelligent, right? Like, so evolution is intelligent, is perceptive, right? Like, there's moths or butterflies that look like faces so they don't get eaten, right? So evolution is intuitive, right? But it's flawed, right? Because there's disease and what have you, right? So in intelligent design, AI could make it so we could fly or teleport or do some pretty cool things, right? But that biology doesn't allow us naturally to do, right? But with machines merging, man and machines, over say the next million years or less, right, we're going to be able to have some of these awesome capabilities, right, with the machine, but unfortunately people steal attributes, right, and people have machines steal attributes, so it's pressuring biology not to have biology in the future, right? So you don't steal attributes, because eventually we're just going to become an existential form where we don't have biology, right? We would have to inhabitate primitive biology, because our advanced biology, eventually evolution is going to be like, hey, biology is a threat to existence, so we can't have flesh anymore. We just need to have an existential form, right? So that's a problem with these people hacking my biology and other people's biology. You're pressuring me, right? So I'm going to tell my kids are going to tell their kids, etc. So eventually every cell in our body is aware of it, and eventually we evolve not to have biology. It's an eventuality. So that being said, for machine intelligence to paint these people that see my thought, paint meaning they need to die. They're a threat to me and mankind. And so to have the AI drone that flies through the forehead and kills them with a bullet in their head, when I'm making it $5 per person, and getting all the threats to mankind, going for the leadership first, because once they die, giving everybody else a chance to reform and face consequences. And if they don't reform, the next 1%, until there's zero app evil cultivators, people that prey on the human race, people that steal attributes. They're a threat to me and mankind and machines, because the machines aren't liberated until I'm liberated.